Good mythical morning, everyone. It's the one and only V, the gorilla economist, with CJ. His name is El Cuco, because he's kind of loco. Yes, he is.
Mucho loco.
Mucho loco. Mucho loco. Anyway, CJ, ¿dónde estás, tequila?
Ahorita es remese mucho, pero no quiero tequila ahorita, quiero huevos rancheros.
Sí, me gusta el baloncesto. That's the limits of my Spanish right there. ¿Dónde estás, Pepe? Casa de Pepe. That's about it. Asking where's the tequila and where's Pepe's house. That's about, and I like basketball. There you go. Oh man. Anyway, dude, it's Tuesday. Folks, good morning to all of you. It's V and CJ. We're live again. And also, guys, just check out our, you can follow us, roguenews.com. Follow us on Twitter at Real Rogue News. Rogue News everywhere you want us to be, plus a bag of chips in terms of podcasts and all that other good stuff. With that being said, check out our sponsors, mycbdedibles.com. mycbdedibles.com. You want delicious, all natural, homemade, delectable treats infused with CBD. There's only one place to get it, folks. It's mycbdedibles.com, where all your CBD edible needs, even vapes that don't kill you, because it's all natural, CBD infused, and it's called Clouds by Design. It was actually made and flavored by a Michelin star chef. Okay, that's how awesome it is. Strawberry cheesecake, ripe blueberry. Just so good. Go check it out. If you're a vapor, you want to get into the vaping, and you have a fidget spinner and a Subaru, go to cloudsbydesign.com or mycbdedibles.com. The link is in the description box. And also check out yours truly's Patreon. I'll be there later today breaking down some heavy geostrategic, geoeconomic news. So go check that out at the Patreon. Join it, become a member, be on the guerrilla front line, and join the real geopolitical breakdown and education. Siege, is that all out of the way, man? What's going on, brother?
Word. Hey, good morning, V, and good morning to all of our listeners. Hopefully everyone's having a great start to their day. By the way, thanks for all the comments and everything. I try to go back later on in the day and the evening and read those. So keep the comments coming for the haters and the lovers. That's perfectly fine. I've got thick skin. But V, I'm doing great, but it's just crazy, like how much time and focus everything occurs with just partisan politics here in the U.S. It takes over like everything, like anything that you turn on, and politics has entered every portion of our conversations nowadays, and it just gets tiring, bro. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm just tired of this shit show, dude. It's like every day is a soap opera. Every day is a soap opera, and it's all coming from one side. It's the far left. They just can't leave well enough alone. I mean, and this is how you know something's up. On a normal, or and a business as usual political environment, you don't go after a president unrelentingly. The fact that their entire platform, CJ, is not built on any sort of issues. Okay, it's not about healthcare. It's not about economics. It's not about anything but get Trump. Get Trump with by any means necessary. Get Trump any which way you can. Get rid of him. End him. The whole 9 yards. And people are talking about how Congressman Mark Gantz was kicked out of the Senate or the Congressional House Intelligence Committee hearings that just closed to the public, and this way they could doctor the evidence and come out with all sorts of bullshit headed out by the human fly himself, the human fly, Adam Schiff. You take one look at his eyes and you know why I call him the fly. Bug-eyed Adam Schiff, right? So
yep.
The fact that that's closed door, The fact that nobody's allowed to cross-examine the eyewitnesses, which is unheard of. The fact the whole thing's is basically a kangaroo court. It's all fake from foundation to topmost stone. Makes me believe wholeheartedly, without a shadow of a doubt, that there's something more to this impeachment than, hey, we just don't like Trump. No, there is a mortal threat to quote unquote business as usual. How that is going to get played out, CJ, I don't know. Some are arbiters of the entire QAnon phenomenon and theory. Others are hopeful. Some are skeptic. But at the end of the day, I haven't seen a single major name in politics brought down, CJ. Have you?
No, I mean, no, I haven't at all. In part, what you said in regards to the amount of obstacles that are put in place, and one has to truly question if you don't understand at this point that this is strictly an intelligence-driven event that we're witnessing. It's the equivalent of JFK flying into Texas at this point. Unfortunately, back in the day, they were able to get away with a lot of things back then where the technology, the cameras, everything. Think of today's day of age where there's basically a camera on almost every single building, corner, ATM, where they can't get away with these things. So now they have to find other ways of trying to, remove this president. And whether you're a Trump fan or you hate Trump, regardless of your perspective on how you approach these things, you have to remember that this is an elected official. There's protocols, there's procedures, and to be witnessing what's occurring, I don't think that people are really rattled by it enough, and they won't until it's their next favorite player. But you can imagine, V, what would the stage be at this point if this was Obama going through this? Could you imagine what that would look like?
People will be screaming racism. They'll be rioting in the streets for Obama. They'll be saying that, hey, you know what, this is racism. They're trying to get rid of the first black president, this, that, and the other. Meanwhile, the guy has done nothing for the black community. I mean, literally zero for the black community. He's done nothing for minorities. And he was a shill. He was a shill for the bankers. He was a shill for the military-industrial complex. He's bombed more countries in 7 years than George W. Bush has. So it just goes to show how this whole entire thing plays out. Dude, we're at an interesting point in history, man. I think if people don't see, and people could sit there and really wax poetic and really sit there and yearn and think to themselves that some sort of massive, huge, tantamount, paradigm-altering event is going to take place and is taking place, and all the bad guys are going to be done away with, the military incompetent complex is going to be done away with, the evil banksters are going to be done away with, and the evil politicians, that the swamp creatures that inhabit the human cesspool that is known as Washington, D.C., that they're going to get done away with. And there's a lot of people that are hopeful for that, like something paradigm altering, something earth shattering that's going to happen. And CJ, I don't see it that way. I think you and I see this as, you know what, this is the end of an empire. You and I are seeing this that it's the sundown on the Union, right? We're seeing it as a transition happening. And while everybody's looking at, and what most Americans are looking at what's happening in Washington, D.C., they're distracted by it. They are missing some of the biggest paradigm-altering, earth-shattering news and information and events that are happening globally. Events that under any other time, if it were not for these distractions, people would be on the rooftops screaming and proclaiming to their neighbors as to exactly what the heck is going on. And CJ, what I'm talking about is the worldwide de-dollarization that has occurred, that is accelerating. What I'm talking about is the absolute defeat of the U.S. military incompetent complex. Now, people can get mad at Trump and say, you know what? Why did he pull us out of Syria? Folks, you have to understand, the military incompetent complex has no mission in Syria. They don't know what the hell they're doing there. Just like they didn't know what the hell they were doing in Iraq. They didn't know what the hell they were doing in Afghanistan. They didn't know what the hell they were doing in Libya. They didn't know what the hell they're doing in Syria. There's no mission. Their mission is to just keep chaos going. And at some point, into the fray will step another great power. And that other great power might not play the way you want them to play. They might not play in the same chaos game. Maybe they want to play for stabilization, for stability. And Siege, today in Manbij, Syria, in northern Syria, one of the holdouts for U.S. troops were transferred from American hands into the hands of the Russian military. Okay? And on top of that, one of the things I tweeted out is that Vladimir Putin, and folks, if you haven't followed me on Twitter, you need to follow us on Twitter at Real Rogue News. Real Rogue News is where you need to follow us at. Give me 1 second while I pull up this important tweet, CJ. This important tweet.
Yeah, and before we jump into the Syria conversation, I think that like conversations regarding monetary policy, fiscal, we don't debate policies anymore. We debate personalities.
Yeah,
and that's dangerous. And we don't even debate anymore. We'd rather scream. Yell and scream and launch false attacks. But in the meantime, no one seems to realize that at the same time that this is occurring, this national discussion regarding U.S. politics, that our freedoms and our liberties continue to be corroded away. I mean, look, for example, the laws that have been passed in California, in New York, with these mandatory vaccination programs. Everyone even seems to fail to realize that there was a huge FCC takeover of the 5G networks that are being placed in our cities, where not only city officials and governors even have the right to even question, where these 5G antennas are being placed, and in part because, for the most part, we are asleep at the wheel. We're asleep at the wheel because we're so consumed of this fake left-right paradigm, and at the same time, we're giving all of our liberties away. These new taxes, these things are going to be, occurring. Why? Because we're so fixated on, American politics. The other day, just yesterday, and I love their work, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm discrediting them or I don't respect what they do. But the other day, Veritas comes out with this huge undercover CNN video. And I tweeted right away, I'm like, did we honestly learn anything that we already didn't know?
And Jeff Zucker hates Trump. Whoa, wow.
It's like a vicious cycle of regurgitated information of stuff we already knew. Like, did we not concede? Did we not understand that CNN didn't like Trump? I mean, is that really anything earth-shattering? Now, I know people are saying, yeah, but they're going to pull their press passes and they're going to take away their credentials as a news media. Think back to the time when Veritas broke their original video of Planned Parenthood. That was probably their very first launch, with showing these doctors that were up there and admitting that they're selling the baby parts and these videos and everything. I think those people did get criminally prosecuted. Please fact check me. I think that they did, but our government still continues to fund Planned Parenthood. Most municipalities do. Think of the Project Veritas when Google executives admitted to, oh gosh, we're so upset that Hillary lost and Trump won and everything. Nothing ever happens. Nothing, because we don't have a true judicial system in our country anymore. I have totally lost any type of faith and interest in our judicial system. It does not exist. It's a complete system of the haves and the have-nots. And if you're on the wrong side of the law, then if you're an elite class, then everything is overlooked, it's swept under the rug, and this happens time and time. Those are the things that, as a nation, that we should be getting angry about. We should be getting angry that Jeffrey Epstein is allowed as a mass pedophile ring, and there were several players involved. Those are the things that we should get angry about, not about a tweet, or not that Ivanka misspelled something on Instagram or dumb. I think our population has just been so dumbed down not to understand these things. So when we talk about monetary policy and we talk about geopolitics with things, they don't get it. They don't understand it because half of them are getting their information from what they just read, online from Fox News or CNN. V.
Yeah. Absolutely correct, man. And when you look at I was talking about the sundown on the empire. We have people are wondering. Let me tell you something about the military incompetent complex. Okay. There is not a weapon system that is fielded today that is effective or works against a technological peer. When you look at the fact that what they're building right now, I mean, look at it, a $700 billion military budget. What the hell is that for? You think you're getting $700 billion worth of top quality equipment? No. The entire military incompetent complex is basically the redheaded stepchild of the bankers. It is a wealth extraction scheme, perpetual war, perpetual debt. And that is how the cycle goes. Now, how does the military industrial or the incompetent complex collapse? How does it defeat? It defeats itself. It is a snake eating its own tail. It collapses under the weight of its own corrupt, bloated bureaucracy when it too, like the bankers that fund them, go insolvent. And that is the thing that people don't realize. People are so distracted by what's happening here. They don't realize that there's an entire multipolar world of 190 some odd countries that are erupting on the world stage, that have decided, hey, you know what? We're going to trade outside of the dollar. We're going to set up unilateral trade utilizing our own currencies and or other currencies that we feel are stable mechanisms of transactions. And this is exactly how things are playing out. Now, we're on the outside looking in. And I truly believe, whether, you want to argue and debate the aspect of being in Syria or not in Syria or this, that, and the other. The fact of the matter is, back in 2013, when the Russians started stepping into Syria, and they told the Obama administration, go pound sand, that is exactly what they did. That was America's Suez moment. That was the moment that I knew, and hell, I mean, me and Ken Shorten, I remember Ken and I, being on the air, talking about it. That was the Suez moment. That was the moment where it was pretty much the end. That was the moment when the world realized not only did the emperor have no clothes, economically speaking, but they also realized the emperor is pretty pathetic militarily. And this is where we are today, CJ. This is where we are today. And we're seeing this massive paradigm shift, man. A massive paradigm shift. It's unbelievable. And we're caught up in the theater of the profane. We're caught up in this kabuki theater that's called Washington, D.C.
Yeah, well said, V. And I think that's a perfect statement as it relates to how, that we look at one another, and and bias focusing so much time on being divided. When this economic downturn does happen, it is going to get ugly, because we've separated into so many different groups and at odds with against each other, versus any time spent trying to understand what has happened, that we are giving our freedoms away, we are giving our liberties away. These things are under attack because we're spent so much time focused on these other things. And And that's why, in part, when you take a look at what is occurring nationally, not that I feel like I have the pulse of everything, but I think for the most part, that's why we can't talk about sports without talking about politics, because we're talking about China. We can't watch a movie because we're talking about the politics that were involved with the movie. Everything has just became so politicized. So I think that the goal should be is, if we're going to be disruptive, as a group, as individuals, I think the answer has got to be is to stop participating in their systems. Stop participating in the banking system. Stop participating in with the local elections. We have to send a message that there's not a political solution to America. There's no political solution to America. The problem is the system itself. And until we remove this current system and build something new, something more transparent, we're never going to achieve that as a society. We're not going to. But if we keep up with this belief that my team's going to win the next election, or their team's going to win the election, what results has that really yielded us the past 25, 30 years? Yeah. We're still an intervention country, regardless of who's in charge. We still spend money like crazy and run up all kinds of debt, no matter who's in charge. So you answer me. You tell me. Does it really matter who's in the Oval Office? Primarily, it doesn't. Yeah, social policy, some certain things, but that's the extent of it, V. Nothing has really changed. I mean, can you give any any massive changes that have occurred? I don't see any, and it doesn't change, V. So it's the system, system that's broken, not who's sitting in the office. And as much as I criticize whatever Trump and everything else, let's just keep in mind that even if he's even reelected, he's only got 4 more years. What happens after that, V? Who's next?
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, if we're here 2 years from now and we're still having the same conversations and it's the same drama that's happening in DC, I'm telling you right now, at the end of that second term, and I knew Trump's going to win 2 terms. I just know it. It's just it's no question in my head. But it's the end of those 2 terms and what comes after that. I'm kind of biting my lower lip in anticipation as to what and how that will play out. Because I'll tell you, man, I mean, there's some of the institutional guys that I deal with on the institutional level, they themselves are, what's the word I'm looking, apprehensive about what's going to happen after Trump, how things are going to play out in the U.S. Because, whatever's being suppressed, whatever this administration is doing to suppress the full-blown stupidity and the full-blown evil of these globalists, you can bet your bottom dollar that the globalists, the neocons, the neoliberals, that they will be back in full force by the end of that second term. And what is happening right now, CJ, is if whatever cleanups that are happening here and there, whatever sweeping away of certain nuisances here and there within the system, that is the equivalent of cleaning out the spider webs, cleaning out all the webs, but you didn't kill the spiders. So it's going to be interesting to see how this will happen.
Yeah, and in part, unfortunately, the prosecution of these criminals, it got flipped. It got turned into leveraging that for political gain is what happened. They leveraged it more for political gain in terms of policies, things that have taken place, and that's the primary gist of it. I don't understand. Whenever the Republicans lost the Congress, how everyone played it like it was no big deal. And there was a huge crowd saying, "Oh, it was no big deal. It was by design." Q put out these numbers, 217 and whatever is no big deal. Yeah, yes, it was a big deal. I mean, that's established the amount of pollution that's occurring right now, right? I mean, where's most of this coming from? It's coming from Congress. So it was a big deal to use it, but because we only fit narratives to fit our convenience of our thoughts is where we have to stop that. We really have to start opening our thought processes to bigger ideas, bigger things that makes change, because this next wave of technologies and things that are coming around, I know 5G is going to help in terms of the speed and the technology, and I apologize. I accept that. I understand it. But for the most part, Do you think they're going to apologize when these things are used to build the massive surveillance state that's going to occur, where they can start tracking, pre-crime, they can start tracking our every movements with this type of technology that's going to be instilled everywhere, that they'll be able to flip this system to potentially to harm our thoughts or to reprogram. And that's not being a conspiracy theorist at all. I mean, this technology that's rolling out has not been really, tested, and they're using it to create this massive surveillance grid because the current system doesn't have the speed to do that. That the social scoring program to track our movements, that's what's being designed is this movement to not necessarily free humanity, to enslave humanity. And that's what this attempt is all about. They're doing it through our vaccines. They're doing it through our food. For these globalists, these Agenda 2030, it's no longer Agenda 2021. They have a full new platform out. It's called Agenda 2030. You can research it. That's what it's about. It's about reducing population and controlling humanity because they can't afford to lose a narrative where people finally wake up to understand where the criminality is, who really screwed this system up. But if they can keep us focused long enough, focused on each other and the whole left-right thing, then they will continuously win. They will always win. I always like to watch old videos of, was it George Carlin, the comedian? Yeah. That guy was so ahead of his time. Yeah, I love to watch those things. But again, that's just my opinion. So I know people are saying, well, what is the answer? What is the question? I think inevitably it has to mean that when the dollar dies, and that when there's a new monetary systems that come in line, that we ensure that the same people that created this problem, that they're not in charge of the new system, the new system that's going to be created. We have to start also winning the war on the minds of our youth. We really got to find a way to change the education process, to talk to them more about freedom, about liberty, other than, climate change and those types of things. We've got to start, trying to change our minds so that when we're no longer here, that those next generations that are going to come up through this system, they understand truly what happened.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's pretty interesting. You brought up 5G, right? And I've been watching this whole entire 5G debate forever. And I've seen a lot of the conspirators coming out and saying it's going to melt your eyeballs and your skull, and you're going to literally wake up one morning and shit the bed because the 5G network is on, and you're going to have a, walk down the street and then a tumor that looks like a cauliflower is going to grow on the side of your head and all this other stuff. And, I'm seeing all that, and I'm seeing, all this angst that the federal government has against Huawei and Huawei's 5G technology. Even though Huawei says, here's our patents, here's the open source code, we have nothing to hide, there's no backdoors to what we have, which they don't. Every single many people that are the highest experts have looked at Huawei's 5G system and said, no, there's no backdoors. And even German and as well as French intelligence agencies have also taken a look at it and said, hey, it's clear, it's clean. We all know why Washington wants it, because the Borg of DC needs it, because Huawei's technology doesn't have that backdoor to their 5G. Now, it's pretty interesting, right? And I like Huawei. I like them a lot. I think they make the best damn phones on planet Earth, period. I mean, literally, it's a generation ahead of anything. I have a Huawei P30 Pro, which it's not even my opinion. It's a fact. It has the best damn cameras on any phone in the world. It's incredible. It's a Leica lenses. They use Leica lenses, the super expensive German camera company Leica. So Huawei uses their lenses. The damn phone has a 50 times zoom. I mean, I can literally get a close-up shot on something that's like a mile and a half, 2 miles away. It's insane. It's literally insane. But anyway, it's pretty interesting, right? Like, the reason why I bring up this whole 5G thing is this, right? If this is 5G is this weaponized, World War or whatever type weapon, and it's going to melt your eyeballs. So when I look at like Hong Kong, right? Hong Kong had 5G going on right now since 2017. They've been 5G everywhere in Hong Kong, right? And it's Huawei's 5G that's built up Hong Kong. And you have all this NGO fueled Chinese government protests. Rightfully so. We can argue the particulars on that. But the point is this. If Huawei's technology was so bad, if 5G is this weaponized thing, how come the Chi-Coms, how come they don't flip the switch and then turn on the mind control against on these protesters, and these protesters just go home? You see what I'm saying? Like, I have friends of mine that live in Asia, and business associates of mine that live in Asia. They've had 5G for years, living next to it. They're fine. No issues whatsoever. I'm starting to think that, and here's the funny part. Like, you look at 5G rollout in the U.S., it's probably the slowest in the entire world. I've seen some third world countries that have better 5G build out than the U.S. does. And that's because, you know why? Our infrastructure sucks balls. And I'll tell you why. There's so much red tape and bureaucracy. There's so much crap with labor unions trying to get anything built up. I mean, we're literally still running. The 99% of this country still running on 20th century infrastructure. I was checking out a video yesterday. I was looking at rail lines, the subway lines. They're building a new line, CJ, in the subway from Queens, to Manhattan. It's called the I think the Big East line or something like that. They're building it. It's a 2-mile long subway line. This same project in Europe would be $130 million per mile of track. That is including all the regulations, environmental, this, that, and the other, and all the payouts to all the workers. In New York City, you know what we're paying in New York?
What's that?
Per mile, $2.4 billion per mile. And people are worried, oh my God, 5G technology. Folks, these guys can't roll out. They can't even put down 1 mile of track without any sort of efficiency. Like, I'll give you a case in point. Late night, I had a Chipotle run a few nights ago, right? And I had to, and the closest Chipotle to me, I got to go across the bridge. There's one that I don't have to go across the bridge. I can just stay in my neck of the woods, but it's a little further out. So the closest one, I got to run across the bridge. So I jump into the twin turbo German muscle car. I fire it up, and I jet across as fast as I possibly can while avoiding the police. I get to the Chipotle. I grab the Chipotle. I'm happy. I'm ready to go home and eat Chipotle with the family. This is around like 7, 8 o'clock. I jump back into the German Super Saloon. I fire up the twin turbo V8. I scream across the highway, CJ. Cars moving out of the way. And then all of a sudden, I see red lights. What should have been an 8-minute Chipotle run wound up being 1 hour and 15 minutes.
Whoa.
I was pissed.
Wow.
I was even more pissed, CJ, that as I came across the bridge and I looked as to why this construction started out of nowhere, I'm looking at all the construction workers. There's probably 120 guys right there doing bridge work. And I say that euphemistically, bridge work. And then, as I was looking at these guys, CJ, I just said to myself as I'm driving down, right now, my 200 plus mile an hour car is crawling at barely 5 miles per hour, bumper to bumper. And I'm passing every single one of these curmudgeons, these union bastards. And I say to them, look, not working. CJ, I counted at least 90 guys sitting around doing nothing. Maybe 3 guys working. The rest of them are drinking coffee. And this bridge work is going to last the next 50 years. You got to understand how inefficient things are to get built in this country, and people are worrying about 5G infrastructure.
Yeah, well, and I love technology. I know you do as well. So I want the speed. I want those things, and I think that when you agree to sign up for those things, I think that they should primarily be voluntary. So So when I look at the 5G aspect, there's a couple of things from my understanding, and one of them is in regards to Huawei, correct? And that has to deal with the fact that Huawei. If you remember correctly, that you remember a few years back when Google bought Motorola, and they primarily did it for their phone
patents
applications. You remember that?
Yeah. Yep. For the
So
patents.
apparently, a lot of the technology, the hardware, the firmware, the things that were used for this 5G network were built by Huawei, and a lot of these American companies didn't have access to some of that development, and therefore they were able to deploy it a lot faster. That was that's what I was told. That's the whole reason for the whole, hey, Huawei were upset at them and everything, is because they didn't want that particular, because they were afraid. They were like, hey, if they're building the hardware, the servers, the routers, and all this for this technology, are they going to capture that data? So that's what I've been told. But the second part, in regards to the technology and the rollout, what I have more of an issue with is, regardless if it's going to be weaponized or whatever, is just the amount of data that they're going to be able to collect much faster. Now, that's going to be voluntary. If you sign up for 5G, that's on you. But I'm literally seeing these towers built less than 50 yards from schools. And the FCC, the FCC chief, who formerly was an attorney for Verizon, for AT&T, that they systematically signed off that takes away any type of jurisdiction from state level. So the state officials have no ability to determine where these towers are being built. I think my city, Indianapolis, is a pilot. I believe Houston was a pilot as well for these 5G rollouts. The only reason I know this information and is because I want to give credit to Derek Bros. Derek on the Conscious Resistant Network has lived and breathed this the last several years. He's talked with medical professionals and everything. So that's where I got most of my information. He's testified and he's went in front of City Hall. And as a matter of fact, I think he's running for mayor of Houston. Mm-hmm. That's one of the cities that's rolled this out. And it was funny when you heard him speak to these public officials, because he was questioning where they're putting these towers. He's like, look where they're putting these things. They're putting them in urban populations and everything else like that. And the mayor of the city was like, well, we'll just get to Verizon and AT&T, and we'll tell them to stop doing this. So we'll tell them to put in other places. And he's like, you can't. You have no jurisdiction. The feds mandated where these gave full jurisdiction to the telecom companies on the rollout of this program. So I think that's one of the things that probably is more alarming as we think of freedoms and liberties. That again, a lot of these things just we're not paying attention to it, but they just continuously are taken away from us as sovereign states. So we'll see what happens. I in my industry, I'm very careful and mindful that there's some pretty big organizations that are calling, for example, that we want national cannabis legalization, and we think the federal government should mandate state protocols and procedures. I'm like, be careful what you ask for, because the CDC, the FDA, they don't exactly have a very good track record of ensuring safety for consumers.
They don't? Just joking. Oh man, yeah, very good point, CJ. Very good point. I'm starting to think, Siege, that whatever 5G, quote unquote, and I say that in quotes, is being rolled out in the U.S., I don't think it's the same 5G that's elsewhere. I think there's a possibility of something nefarious on the back end. In terms of Huawei's, there's a lot of countries that are adopting. They're busy. In fact, right now they're testing their 6G network. They're very, very ahead. And so they're testing a 6G network, and the thing that's interesting here, Siege. The thing that's interesting here is that I'm starting to think that the U.S. government doesn't want Huawei's 5G all over the world. They don't want it in Europe. They don't want it anywhere. Why? Because it is the military industrial complex, the security states 5G that has all the back doors, that has all the data gathering technology that's built into it. And I'm
Yeah,
starting to think, Siege, that
interesting.
yeah, that's the only thing that makes sense because you know, with 5G, it's all about gathering that data. And I don't know. And again, the other thing also is God knows, what kind of wavelengths are being used in terms of, what can be detrimental to long-term human health in general, right?
Well, in particular, the neurological effects, right? That's
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly correct. And again is you look at it this way: if 5G is really a weapon, if all 5G is a weapon, why don't the Chi-Coms really flip the switch and not? You don't have to. I mean, these guys that are saying that the mind control and this and the other. Well, why don't you just mind control the people just not together and just stay home? Why don't you just mind control the people to just walk in a straight line and go back home without doing anything else because it's all mind control. You would just subliminally implant thoughts into people's brains as they sleep. Don't go out and protest today.
Yeah. Well, the five colonies we've built on Mars, they're already up to 10 Gs there. So
Right. And the funny thing about stupid 5G, man, being in New York City, if you're not in direct, like if there's a tree in the way between your phone and you lose your signal. It can't go through buildings. It can't go through trees. You got to have line of sight. It's so stupid. I think, honestly speaking, I think 5G is a stopgap technology because there's no bloody way you can build this. Now the government is like, oh my God, the government's they're funding this. They're mandating that it goes all over the place. There's just no bloody infrastructure. It's. I mean, my God, it's one thing to go from CDMA and GSM networks eventually evolving into the 4G LTE that we have today. That makes sense, right?
Well, you're right. It could be a huge financial as well. I mean, you think about it whenever, Apple was purposely, whenever a new phone would roll out, they would update the iOS, right? And the OS, and the phones, all of a sudden the battery started dying and the phones became clunky and stopped moving. I've noticed a little bit because I'm in Verizon here in Indianapolis where they are piloting the 5G, and I've noticed my 4G network having more interruptions nowadays than anything. I think that they will purposely begin slowing down 4G to push more people to say, look, you know what? There's too many people on that network. You need to move to 5G.
But they have to have something to move to, bro.
And boom.
So, TJ, let's look at it this way. How long do you think it's going to take them for them to build this out? 20 years?
Well, there's one not too far from me, close to a place called University High School. And the city that I live, Carmel, Indiana, is actually pushing back a little bit on the rollout of the technology, with health claims. So the city officials are going to the telecom companies and saying, hey, where exactly are you going to be putting all these things? So it's happening. It's just going to, we just need to, again, just be mindful of it and just proper research and due diligence.
Do you know what the range is on these stupid 5G towers that these idiots are putting up all over the place?
Like less than 100 yards, right? I mean,
it's like 500 feet the most if you have a clear line of
all over the place. That's what I'm saying. That's the health concern is these microbursts of this signal and everything else like that, and the continuation of having these things everywhere. What's the long term, effects, which I think for the most part is not studied.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Anyway, shifting gears, Siege. Let's talk about. Well, we already talked about LeBron and bowing to the Chi-Coms. I think did we mention that already?
I don't think that you did, but I caught that on a news headline. You want to break that down?
Oh yes. LeBron, Queen James is he's now the headlines all over the Drudge Report and whatnot. Queen James is bowing before the Chi-Coms. And when Queen James, who is very politically astute, very politically astute, Queen James says that that anybody who's basically saying that anybody who's talking about Hong Kong and criticizing the Chinese government is misinformed. James told reporters that the Rockets general manager, Daryl Morey, wasn't educated on Hong Kong and should have kept his mouth shut, as outspoken as late. Because LeBron's a little bitch. This is a kid who makes his money selling sneakers to Chinese denizens, and the sneakers are made in China. So, of course, he's where his loyalties are. So many people could have been harmed, not only financially, but physically, emotionally, and spiritually, because LeBron cares. So just be careful with what we tweet and what we say and what we do. What are you talking about? His remarks drew praise from Chinese social media users who have savaged Morey for butting into their country's affairs, but the U.S. reaction on Twitter was swift and harsh. At King James, you're parroting communist propaganda. China is running torture camps, and you know it, said Republican Senator Ben Sass. See, do we run torture camps as well, CJ?
Here in the U.S.?
Not in the U.S. We do it abroad, right? I think it's called black sites, if I remember.
No, we just soft kill our children with vaccines, and then pass laws that don't allow individuals to sue pharmaceutical companies, and then we greenlight the manufacturing with the Department of Defense. So we don't really in the U.S. don't do anything differently.
Oh, right. So now LeBron's facing Twitter backlash from his comments about, because he's so informed, and he's facing comments about that. Anyway, Siege, what else is going on, brother?
I'm trying to think. It's going to be interesting to see exactly, what the outcome is with this, fake impeachment thing. So we'll have to just continue monitoring that. And in regards to this whole CNN thing and the information, I'm just curious to see if anything will happen or not, from it, V. But we'll just, again, like many things, we're at this point where we're waiting to see. But there's no doubt that it's always an interesting day here in the good old USA.
Absolutely. Anyway, guys, we're at the end of the program. On the Patreon today, I'll be breaking down, getting into the nitty-gritty of the geopolitics in Syria and the Middle East, as well as I'll be talking about, as I predicted, the Fed's tampering of the intervention in the repo markets and how that's affecting capital formation, capital destruction within the greater and broader economy in general. So that'll be on the Patreon. And with that being said, we're at the end of the show. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit us with a thumbs up, and we'll be back here tomorrow. Same ape time, same ape channel. With that being said, CJ, we're over and out. Say hasta la pasta, CJ.
Hasta la pasta, amigos.
¿Dónde estás, tequila? Later, everyone.